you know. November 19th in 1493, the Spanish came to Puerto Rico. The first uprising was actually by the natives, but then later the independence movement was born in 1868. I tried not to put the dates so you could just see, and then I have more time to talk about what's going on. That's the flag from the Vitrales, and this is where the Puerto Rican flag was born, another flag made by the independence movement. And after this various attempts, actually Spain gave independence to Puerto Rico. It lasted only like 2 months, because then the American troops invaded Puerto Rico as part of the Spanish-American War in 1898. So, this is military troops occupied Puerto Rico, and as a result, then a treaty was written with Spain, and that's where Spain gave to the U.S. Puerto Rico and Guam and the Philippines. So just to make what this is currently was the status of the territories in the U.S. The incorporated territories are Alaska and Hawaii, and then unincorporated territories are Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Mariana Islands. That was decided in the insular cases by the Supreme Court of the U.S. in 1901. And it was basically based on racial discrimination. They're different, they're dark color, they have a different culture, they speak differently, ergo they could never integrate to the US. And we keep them as territory because, we gained them from the war, and in some way they needed to explain to the rest of the American people what was their relationship to these people. Exactly, and this is like a map. Most of them is also strategic, because they wanted to, of course, protect the United States and as well as the Panama Canal. Okay, sorry, I jumped a slide. It's having a problem. Okay, so the U.S. citizenship was given to us in 1917. That's actually a newspaper from Puerto Rico. Which meant that we would have the right to a vote in the US without a need for a visa. It also meant that we needed to pay taxes, but it didn't mean that we could vote for our president. Puerto Ricans have never been able to vote for a president and never will be. And as a result, this Ungleichheit, like this is the same president that could send us to war, we are not able to choose who he is. I keep disconnecting. It's not working.
Well, it is, but it's pretty slow.
Okay.
It's still moving.
So, as a result, a few months later, after the U.S. citizenship was given to the Puerto Ricans, they were directly shipped to First World War, and it's as well been done in Second World War and in Korean War. The Korean War was a very distinctive war, and where the Puerto Ricans were participated, because firstly they were segregated actually with the African Americans. They weren't mixed with the rest of the U.S. troops. And the Korean War, where they went, they were actually sent in a place where they thought it was a lost battle. So when you think about it, Puerto Ricans and African Americans went to places where the battle was basically lost, and then sent the rest of the troops. That's another flag. So, and very similar to the Kurdistan and the Mapuches, I think the trying to indoctrinate this new, or trying to make Puerto Ricans and as well as the other territories more American. You can, el otro slide. This is a zoom into that, and right here on the end it says the U.S. must occupy its new territories with or without their consent until they can govern themselves. So this is a little bit of the idea of what's going on in the minds of the American people state-wise. As a result of this, the National Party was born in 1922. And it gained more strength after this doctor was caught writing a letter, which I can't read there. If you can read that.
was the generate and Jewish race of men ever to inhabit this sphere. I have done my best to further the process of extermination by killing off 8 and transplanting cancer into several more. All physicians take delight in the abuse and torture of the unfortunate subjects.
So imagine that, like these doctors are coming from the US, sponsored to make their own little experiments to Puerto Ricans. And another part of that, which was ongoing until the 70s, was the mass sterilization without the consent. The woman would give birth and it would be automatically sterilized. Because one of the main problems probably the US had with Puerto Rico was that it was overpopulated. Yeah, after this, Don Pedro Albizu Campo organized the first revolt against the US regime, which is an agricultural revolt, the Macheteros revolt, and actually won. It was for better wages and better working conditions. I'm trying to go really quick because I don't know how much time I have. After that, Don Pedro Albizu Campo was surveillanced by the FBI and also imprisoned, and this is the NAFO. It just made imposed the independent and nationalist people to keep on marching against U.S. regimes. Obviously, it was not meant nicely on the streets, so police or U.S. military would just shoot the people on the streets protesting. Sorry. Disculpa. Another form of colonial rule in Puerto Rico is that the U.S. government created a gag law in 1948. It was illegal to sing a patriotic tune, to have a Puerto Rican flag, to meet with groups and talk about independence or nationalistic movements, to organize workers' allies or unions. So these are like a line of all the people who disobeyed, and this is the military, bringing him to custody, which is either, I think, a fine or 2 years in prison. More revolts and uprising kept going in the 1950s. The U.S. actually bombed Puerto Rico. And nationalists actually attempt also to assassinate Truman unsuccessfully. I'm trying to explain the whole nationalistic independence movement. And the movement kind of died out when they basically founded the Estado Libre Asociado, which is free associated state. It's basically a fake name for sovereignty, or that you have your own government now, because it would benefit the US and also take Puerto Rico off of the list of the colonies in the UN. So it's kind of like a trick for the Puerto Ricans to believe that they are autonomous, but and contrary to popular belief, our constitution had to be first approved by the US Congress, which means if it was redacted on our own, then it could have been not approved. So it's all on the image of the US Congress. Exactly, that's the United Nations in 53. The last attempt after this was that 5 nationalists attempted an attack on U.S. House Representative. Lolita Lebron went in, all of them went in with weapons and shot at the air. They weren't really attempting to shoot at representatives, they were just trying to call attention. So Lolita Lebron went on with a lipstick that was very remarkable for the people. She went really well dressed with a flag and screamed after shooting at the air, "Viva Puerto Rico Libre." Okay. The Estado Libre Asociado, the free associated state, the new politics, and the first elections done in Puerto Rico killed basically the independent movement and the nationalist movement, because the people, or most of the people, thought, okay, now we can self-govern ourselves. The next uprising in the 70s actually proved that we are still under FBI surveillance, because any student, and most of the movements were actually student movements, would be followed or imprisoned, or in this case, shot dead. So, yeah. Sorry. I try to sum it up. I think the lessons that we learned here, like now I try to tie it back to the questions, is that we had a lot of help in the diaspora. Since the establishment of the Estado Libre Asociado, the ELA, there was a lot of promotion of migration to the States because there would be better jobs there. There was actually promoted by both sides, and because the U.S. would have very cheap manual labor. And what did also happen is that a lot of people started to organize for the pro-independence of Puerto Rico state side. So most noticeably was the Young Lords Party in New York, the Macheteros Party, founded by Filiberto Ojeda, and the Fuerza Armada de Liberación Nacional, also founded by Filiberto Ojeda. Filiberto Ojeda was once again as same as the 70s students and as same as Pedro Albizu Campo, shot by the FBI because they were under surveillance, and after a while they just took matters into their own hands. I think this is the most vivid examples of colonial representation. Is that every time there uprising was organized, students were organized, there's always FBI surveillance. There's always some type of information being hacked or used. A lot of it also now these days through Facebook or chats. And that, I would say, would be one of the most present things when that killed also the movement. It's louder. And the recent uprising is called Se Acabaron las Promesas. Obama signed a promesa law which seated 7 unelected officials to basically decide where to cut budgets for debt we don't know who we owe. It's a very long story, we could probably talk about that later, but that proves also that the US Congress has the last say. We didn't choose these people, and these people are making budget cuts in education, in healthcare, they closing schools, they basically go over our constitution and do not represent the voice of the people. They basically represent the voice of the bondholders who are trying to probably take money out of a broken system or a corrupt system in Puerto Rico. That's another long way, but yes, I guess I could leave it there and then we could start the questions now. Yeah, those are examples of how this image basically just spread in the US. Our message now is descolonizate, just to try to, grab attention.